Crash Course on Building a Desktop Computer by Brandon Bell. This is a crash course on building a desktop computer for anyone that hasn't built one before. It'll tell you how to save money, the different components, and how to put those components together. It's very simple. It's the best way to go. The first reason why you would want to build a desktop computer is money. Financially, it's the best way to go to save money. Number one reason for the build is to save money. The parts can be individually customized so that you can save the most money when picking them up and trading them out. When you have parts that are built for a computer, it's nice to be able to save money when you're picking them up. Customization is also a personal pro for building your own computer. It can be tailored to your own needs as far as the way that it works and the way that it performs. It can also be aesthetically what you want. The desktop case can be customized so that you can have it look any way that you want. Now, the components of a computer. The motherboard is the body of the computer. It's where all the electricity is sent from different places so that information can be passed throughout the computer. It's also where all the other components are plugged in, and it can be different factors. There can be different form factors as far as what size the motherboard is. The processor, I consider the heart of the computer. It's what makes everything pump. It has all the electricity and it powers the computer so that information can be sent through the motherboard to the different places that it needs to be sent to. Processors can be different speeds and also have different cores. With the RAM and the video card, these are actually two components that are very important to the computer. The RAM is what I consider the amount of information that a computer can process at one time. It's called random access memory. Video card is actually a different processor that only deals with the video aspect of the computer. A hard drive and an optical drive. Hard drive saves all the information for the computer. The optical drive, whatever it may be, CD, DVD drive, or a card reader, can save outside external memory type disks. Power supply is a very important component of the computer. One of the most important components, and you don't want to cheap out on your power supply. 650 watt power supply is a very good one to have. There's also other ones. They come modular, which means that they can unplug the cords and not, or they come all together, which means that all the cords are already plugged in. You must have them all in your machine. A case is a very important component as well, although it might not look like it. You don't want to cheap out on your case either. You have to have a case that will actually circulate air, keep your computer cool, and you want one that has functionality, has the right amount of ports and the right amount of space for you to work your computer. Now, when putting a computer together, you want to start with the power supply going into the case. The power supply itself will power the computer. You need to put it in there at first because it's the biggest component, and it usually stays in the way. That does differ sometimes for the case that you use. Now, you want to take the motherboard out of the box, put it on top of the box, and start to assemble the motherboard separately. First, we put the RAM in. Random access memory goes into the slot that is shown on the screen. You have to open up the clips. Make sure that you're gentle when you're pushing the RAM in, and it should click when you hear it in there. The processor, the brain of the computer, the heart of the computer, goes into this little slot here. There's a latch there. You have to open up the latch so that the pins will open. When you put the processor in, it should sit in there. You don't want to force it. If you bend one of those pins in there, it'll be a junk processor forever. The Radeon graphics cards. These are very easy to enter into the computer. You put them into a PCI Express port. A lot of them can go into a crossfire configuration, meaning you can use two at a time. But they are very color-coded and easy to put in. They fit right into the motherboard. Once you have all the components on the motherboard, you put that into the case. It needs to go onto these brass standoffs that you see on the bottom left there, so that the motherboard will not touch the metal chassis. Of course, you see a short circuit happening there in no time. Once the hard drive is installed, you can install the hard disk drive and the CD drive. Sometimes the motherboard and the CD drive and hard disk drive, sometimes they'll alternate depending on the case that you have and the amount of space that you have there. But they always either clip in with clips like you see here, or there'll be case screws that you use to fasten the optical drives in. Now, once everything's in the case, you can connect the peripherals with the component cords that you see in front of you. The top left red one is called SATA cord. The bottom left is IDE, and the cords on the right are power cords. They usually come from the power supply. Once you get that all done, you want to connect the motherboard pins. These make the case work for you. So there's a motherboard pin for turning the computer on. Also, there's one for the reset button on the computer, if need be, and for the speakers that the computer uses. Those are all color-coded and laid out in your instruction manual for your case and your motherboard. Now, choosing an operating system. There's Windows is obviously the most prominent. I like the Linux and whatnot, but choosing the operating system itself is up to you. Most operating systems are going to be as stable as possible, whatever you choose. Now, once you have your operating system, you want to boot from disk when you start up your computer. So you'll hit F2 in order to go into the BIOS. That will start you out from the boot sequence. And you want to go to the boot sequence and make sure that's set to the CD-ROM in order to boot from the disk that you're using in order to install your operating system. Now, once you do that, everything's all booted up. The last thing you need to do is install the drivers for the motherboard that you're using in order for the motherboard to use the operating system that you just installed. Once that's all installed and ready to go, you have a beautiful, complete new computer.